Welcome to Transform Now, the podcast brought to you by robotic process automation pioneer Blue Prism. Digital transformation has the potential to reshape the way companies service their customers, engage their employees, and manage their operations. Whether you're looking to develop strategies, tactics, and best practices to positively impact the future of work, or you're curious to learn how other companies have successfully navigated their digital transformation programs, then this podcast is for you. We're here to help you transform now.
Thank you for joining us today in the Transform Now podcast. In the final of a three-part series, this episode provides insight from an experienced executive in the financial services industry through a discussion with one of Blue Prism's leaders. Over to you, Darshan.
Great to be here and welcome everybody. My name is Darshan Jain. I'm the Senior Director for Financial Services and Banking for Blue Prism for North and South America. And in this role, of course, I work with a multitude of financial services companies with all things related to intelligent automation and helping them along their journey. I'm also super delighted to have joining me today, Giovanni Gentile of State Street. And we've been working with State Street for a number of years, and just amazing what they've done with their automation. And that's what we're really going to be talking about a lot today. I'd like to turn it over to Gio to give a brief introduction. Gio.
Awesome. Thanks, Darshan. Appreciate it. Giovanni Gentile, been with State Street about 3.5 years, spent about 25 years in the auto industry, working for Ford Motor Company, FCA, and a couple of suppliers as well. Again, joined State Street from trying to transform physical robots into virtual robots and the mentality behind it. So bringing a lot of that experience with me from the auto industry and looking forward to discussing it with you today, Darshan.
You know, the Japanese concept of muda, waste. If it's not helping directly the customer, then everything else is considered waste. And that's what we should focus on. And it parallels to me a broad use of tools in general. So I would say muda is a bit of a tool. It's a lens to look through how you look at your business. I mentioned the GigaPress at Tesla, it's a tool and it's going to simplify, reduce the time, improve the quality, less welding joints. They're going to have this one massive rear cast piece where everybody else just starts with small pieces of metal and they weld them.
Sure.
In your case, beyond muda, which is a conceptual framework, what actual tools are also you found helpful, whether it from your automotive days or now past few years at State Street? These could be software tools, they could be conceptual frameworks, but tools that really help deliver the mission that you're after.
Simple things. Getting body IDs set up and things of that nature was a very manual process. So we looked to SailPoint to help automate. And now to getting access and things of that nature takes us a day or two versus two weeks. So that's a big tool, utilizing that tool. Process mining, obviously we're doing a lot of POCs right now from a process mining perspective to help us identify cases that are going to give us the biggest bang for our buck, that are more standardized in the way we look at opportunities as well. That's another tool. And then Splunk is something we use for analytics and monitor. We were looking at performance metrics. So what we're trying to set up is we have an ROI portal now where the business can go and look and see. Our job, as far as automation is concerned, is to make sure the automation performs as intended. With respect to the benefits and the ROI, that should really fall on the business, right? Because they're the ones who are going to say, listen, if we automate this process, we can save, let's say, just for example, 10 FTEs. So now we have performance metrics utilizing Splunk to say, how well are we doing? How many manual touches? Can we take that and translate that into number of transactions per dollar or number of manual touches per dollar? Something that's tangible that the business can say, we are reaping the benefits. So using those tools really are essential to us in achieving. We're starting to build our collection of tools as well, using Kunda a little bit as well. In the beginning, we wanted to focus on RPA. And I think that's important as well. Sometimes when you try to boil the ocean and bring on too many tools and do too many things, you find yourself stagnant, right? And you're just incrementally increasing in a lot of different areas where you're laser focused on, RPA initially, and then you start to bring in tools as you mature. That's probably the best, bang for your buck and the best use of your time to do that. Analytics is important, obviously. The ability to reduce time in your delivery is important. So you should focus on tools that kind of help with that velocity.
Yeah, I do see this exactly as you're mentioning. People want to get the entire ecosystem figured out and get all these things before they even get started. I want to go mountain hiking, therefore I go to my co-op store, my outdoor store, and I want to get all the latest professional gadgets because it'll make me feel like I'm a mountain, hiker. Whereas guys, you just need a good trail map. You need a sturdy backpack, some good boots. Go get some experience, then figure out, I do really need this. Well, that would be helpful as you get immersed in it. But having this whole collection and not knowing how to use it just makes you, number one, you spend some money. And number two, know how to use these things very well. So then you might just give up.
Yeah, I think as humans, we tend to overcomplicate things, right? So sometimes you can take a page out of the bot book, and it's, bots, they have a task and they follow that task. So it's really important to set those goals, but then really be laser focused. I call them phases. Okay, this phase we're doing this, and it can be simple as life. Okay, right now I'm driving, and I drove up from Austin over the weekend to Detroit, and I just focused on driving Saturday. And my wife said, "Well, what about tomorrow? What about this? What about?" I said, "You know what? I'm going to focus on today." And when you do that, you're there, you're in the present moment, you're alive, you're living, but then you're also going to give a much better performance in whatever you're doing when you are focused like that. So it's nice to have the overall goal long term, but then take out little bites as you go along the journey and make sure those are done with the utmost responsibility and focus. You'll be much more successful. So that's what I recommend RPA programs that are just starting out. Keep it simple, start small, and then slowly build.
Yep. Fantastic. I think that's a great point to take a pause, and I'll ask Rhiannon to come back. I'm just keeping an eye on the time. We wanted to have about 10 or 15 minutes or so for some Q&A. So Rhiannon, do we have anything in from our audience that I can answer?
First of all, I just love the fact we're going back to these football analogies, Gio. I love the way you're just throwing them back in. Quick reminder to our audience. Sorry, go on.
Right. I was just going to say the Italians won the Euro Cup. I know some people might be happy with that, but that was huge for me. And playing soccer my whole life, and actually spent a little time in Man City on trial back in the early 90s. So soccer is very important to me, but you can take sports or you can take athletics and really draw some really good analogies of teamwork and things of that nature, focuses and goals. And again, going back to the simplicity of things, when you do that, it's a much clearer, a much easier journey. So
I agree with you. I totally agree with you in terms of team culture as well, and embedding that in from a sporting angle. So quick reminder to our audience, feel free to drop any questions into that Q&A widget on the right-hand side. First one here, the discussion around the automotive industry has been really good as a backdrop for best practice, lessons learned, etc. Darshan, when we look at other industries, what other ones would you suggest financial services should look to for inspiration when it comes to automation and disruptive tech?
Great question. So, Gio mentioned again that visualization of an assembly line. The focus is on what do we do to keep that assembly line moving in a modern automotive plant? How do we get higher quality? How do we get faster throughput? So in the same way, if we can have laser focus in financial services, I'm thinking of the customer journey. So yes, there's more retail banking or retail aspects, but if you think of the customer journey, what do they do in most FS companies? They open accounts. So there's an onboarding whole pathway. Then there's a transactional pathway. There is upselling, i.e. additional products. Every time you have these customer journeys, you've got to think of how do I make this more frictionless? So in the past year, what has happened? I know I did a lot of business travel visiting, folks like Giovanni in Austin, Texas. I've been working with all my customers through video, just like we are today. This whole past 18 months has been about video. So imagine, we're used to it now, Zoom or WebEx, what have you. I wonder, can we take a page out of that lesson and apply it in financial services? There are still institutions that require you to sign paper documents, come and see a loan officer and do it. Now they've slowly started to say, okay, maybe can we use e-signing like a DocuSign? I would say that is a form of disruption, which is video. Hey, you could have your customer meetings. You don't have to go and say, ma'am, are you available on Tuesday, 2 weeks from now for us to have a loan review or your account review? Just get on Zoom and do that. So I think there's a whole embracing of video that FS hasn't tapped into yet. So, Gino, I'm just curious that, I know State Street is not so much consumer focused, it's more institutional clients.
Correct.
Are you seeing, the business has been going on, obviously, but is video being more embraced, and could it become more of a customer journey tool? As I'm thinking for consumer?
I would think so. I would think so. And our team is global, so we tend to be more video focused anyway, as far as calls are concerned. But yeah, I think that's huge. A more intimate customer, relationship and experience can be achieved that way. And whether you use automation or artificial intelligence in conjunction with video, you could probably give the user a much more enhanced experience.
And just one more thought on that. Again, I mentioned e-signing. FS in my
DocuSign.
it is so paper intensive. Everything we do is paper. We now call it PDF, but it's still paper. We just have PDF documents. So I know people are being sent these for signing. So what do? I have to go to a print shop with you. You don't have your own printer. And then I got to sign it. Then I got to scan it. And then I have to send it back. And you just get a degraded quality document back. DocuSign has proven itself. It's being used. It's got all kinds of legal timestamps and it's being used. Gio, how is it in State Street, electronic signing? Is that now more and more acceptable, or is it still we need wet signatures?
Yeah, it's more acceptable. I'm a big proponent of let's save some trees and forego the paper. I think it makes sense. So we're starting to see that much more and more, obviously, with the security issues in the past and being able to alleviate that. We are seeing that. I still think there's a way to go. I mean, we still receive a lot of fax, and that causes a lot of, we're starting to automate our fax retrieval as well, using AI to automate a fax signature verification and things like that. But ultimately, we would like to get rid of all that in the end. But that's still a journey, I think, from State Street perspective.
I would agree that there is still a way to go there, but I think it's nice to hear that we're starting to get the ball rolling on this. And Gio, just over to you before we begin to close the session out. If you were to go back in time to the automotive industry, what best practices and lessons learned would you take back from your time in, say, the financial services industry?
I think financial services is heavily regulated. That's probably one of the biggest differences that there are, and they do a very good job. I think it's a challenge as well to automate when you're heavily regulated. Being able to get on the cloud is key for us, but obviously security in the cloud. You have compute power, scalability, things that help. But from a truly regulatory perspective, I think the financial services industry does a really good job of making sure they have all their ducks in order. And going back to the auto industry, I think we could probably do maybe a little bit better job. Sometimes it is fly by the seat of your pants. We need to get things done.
Mm-hmm.
Or you don't have that discipline as much, and then you will run into errors and issues so now and again. But that'd be the biggest. So from a CIS and controls perspective, I think they have a good handle on that.
Do you think also that the legal framework is keeping up with the pace in which technology is being adopted and utilized, where there's a litigation from a customer?
Mm-hmm. I think so. I think there's obviously room for improvement. I'm not as close to that, but I think there is opportunity. I think the hard part, I liken State Street to the Titanic. So you're trying to turn the Titanic around, and that's not an easy thing to do. So you have to pick and choose your battles. But ultimately, do we want to be the speed of a fintech company, or do we want to be the speed of a brick and mortar financial services institution? And that's the decision you have to make. And sometimes we have to go down because we can't bring State Street with us. Other times they're right there with us. So there's definitely those challenges that are still prevalent.
So just before, this session's been fantastic. And just a quick reminder, audience, connect and link in with both Gio and Darshan and carry this conversation on after today. But Darshan, I just want to come back to you as we close. What's the kind of key takeaway you would say for our audience to go home with today?
Again, working with Giovanni and his fascinating background, it gave me a lot of thought to saying we don't look enough at other examples. We are probably very myopic and looking at only our own surroundings. So many times I have customers saying, Darshan, I'd love to talk to another peer of mine, someone who doesn't compete with me. But can you connect me with someone in Europe? Can you connect me with someone in APAC region? But whether it's a bank or it's a pension management company or a private equity firm, and that's great. And we have lots of examples. But what I've learned from Gio is that the concepts from one industry apply so well in another industry that I think I'd love to broaden, certainly in my experience, to perhaps once in a while suggest to my customers, hey, I'd love to connect you with someone in pharma or in retail. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is make the customer experience to be frictionless, more valuable, more satisfying. And isn't that what every industry is? And yes, there's certain things, we're heavily regulated in that best and so on. So one of the key takeaways that I've enjoyed from what comments that Gio has mentioned today is we don't have to look just in our backyard. We should look at other industries that are innovating. Again, going back to Tesla. Tesla did not start out to be a car company. Their mission is to be a sustainable energy company. They just happen to be doing it by putting a computer together with 4 wheels attached. And that's really what their product is. How do we get off of fossil fuels and so on? At the end of the day, yeah, it looks like a car, but really is it a car? And in world, the definition of even vehicle ownership will change, because why do I have to have a car sitting on my driveway when I don't use it half the time? Particularly in COVID, it's done nothing for me. I could just literally call an app. I know we have Uber today, but imagine even a cheaper alternative. There's nobody in the car. It just comes and it ferries me from A to B, and I'm done. So the takeaway is we can transform by thinking a bit more broadly about which industry we should look to for disruption. And to me, that's just fascinating. And as you mentioned, it's a big cruise liner, whether it's a State Street or a water. They are big cruise liners. They don't turn like this, but they're there. Eventually, they can be very powerful in their turns.
Gio, coming to you on this, what would you say your key takeaway is?
In the end, it's keep it simple. I think, again, overcomplicating things and setting up an RPA program or an automation program, thinking too broadly and too specifically at the beginning is the Achilles heel, I think. So it's really important to understand what your goal is. And really, ultimately, it's retaining customers, making money, just to be frank. And how do we get there? And let's start small. Let's build. Again, I always use the soccer analogy because I grew up playing soccer my whole life. I kick the ball against the wall. I do a little bit of juggling. I do a little bit of dribbling. I don't go out and play a 90-minute game right off the bat. When I'm there and I'm ready to go, then I engage at a higher level. And as you practice and then you learn, you'll get better and better at it. So I think what's really important for a lot of the companies that are just starting on their journey, again, is just to really be focused, keep it simple, make sure you get the right sponsorship, get the whole company on board with what's going on, what you're trying to do, and start with just simple processes. And then you'll see the benefits that those bring. And as you learn to streamline your processes and grow your RPA automation or your whatever automation you're using, then you become that much more successful, much more quickly. It's not going to take you as long. So as Darshan mentioned, learn from other people's mistakes, talk to other industries, talk to other teams. And I love doing that because there's no sense in reinventing the wheel. What you really need is already out there. You just need to find it.
Thanks for tuning in to Transform Now. For more insightful discussions on digital transformation and more, check out our podcast channel where you'll find all of our previous episodes. To make sure you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast player. And if you like what you heard, please leave us a review. For more information about digital transformation and the future of work, check out blueprism.com to learn how Blue Prism's digital workforce is enabling enterprise transformation now.